Silvia stood behind JP, a few sewing pins pressed carefully between her lips. She skillfully added a few extra stitches on the seams of his shoulders. She stepped back, admiring her handiwork. Her design had really come together, and now that it was finished, she couldn't help but let a satisfied grin sneak across her face. She stuck the last of her sewing pins back into her pincushion bracelet. JP hopped out of the styling chair, posing in front of the floor-length mirror. He practices his point move, watching the fabric move. "It fits perfectly, thank you, Miss Silvia." JP hurried off to the dressing room to remove the outfit. Silvia turned to Seojun, now waiting in the chair for his final fitting. Silvia instructed Seojun to lift his arms, ensuring he had enough slack in the fabric to not restrict his movements. Silvia stitched on the last of the beaded details to the shoulders, working carefully to avoid sticking him with the needle. Silvia did one final walk around, making sure to tie off and remove any loose threads. "What do you think? Does it fit all right?" Seojun calmly stood and strode over to the mirror, looking his reflection up and down before posing a few times. When he was done, he looked towards Silvia and said, "It feels good. I can tell you worked hard. Thank you." "You're welcome," Silvia said as she moved to clean her space, relieved that both members were happy with her work. She silently mused that it was one of the few times that Seojun had spoken to her without looking dazed. After a few moments, Silvia felt eyes following her, so she turned to see Seojun still standing in his stage costume, watching her move about the room. She asked, "Was there something else, Mr. Seojun?" He seemed unsure of what to say before he shook his head and walked into the dressing room to change his clothes. Silvia began to pack her things as it was close to her shift's end, and Elaine had been very adamant about Silvia getting home on time. Her sketchbook was the last thing, so she walked over to the bench by the changing room where she had left it, but Seojun walked out at that exact moment, so they collided. Seojun quickly braced Silvia to prevent her from falling to the ground. Once they were steady, Silvia shakily said, "Thank you, Mr. Seojun." Silvia looked into Seojun's eyes and saw a resoluteness that surprised her. "You're welcome. By the way, could you stop calling me Mr.?" he asked. When Silvia didn't answer, Seojun began to retract his hands from her now steady shoulders. Silvia then said, "But you're my superior, right? I mean, I'm happy to be friends, I just don't know if that's okay." Seojun quickly answered, "The only one I see as a superior is Mr. Dunwon. In my mind, all of our staff are friends. After all, it's because of all of you that Dreams was formed and will be able to shine on stage." Silvia seemed surprised by his answer. However, she calmly stepped back, grabbing his hands as they fell away from her sides. "Okay then. Are you okay with any honorifics, or should I call you by name only?" Seojun seemed surprised by this gesture. "How old are you?" he asked. "I'm 19, the same age as Mr. Alexei," Silvia said calmly while resisting the urge to swing their hands. She began to notice a feeling of déjà vu as they stood there talking, but she dismissed it because she had held many people's hands like this before. "Well," Seojun's voice pulled Silvia from her mulling. "Since I'm 20, Oppa would work, but if you're comfortable with it, I would prefer just Seojun." "I'm fine with that. Remembering proper honorifics is still a bit hard." Silvia relaxed as she let go of Seojun's hands. She paused, remembering something. "Oh right, I was grabbing my sketchbook. Elaine's gonna scold me if she calls and I'm not on the bus home." Silvia giggled as she packed her sketchbook into her bag. "Elaine has scolded me for staying late too," Seojun chuckled lightly. "For someone so bubbly, she can be surprisingly intimidating." "I thought that we weren't supposed to comment on or ask about your other schedules. How did she know you were still here?" Silvia questioned as she put on her coat, now ready to leave. "She found me asleep in the training room. As trainees, our schedules never really changed. And Elaine was helping us develop our styles," Seojun explained with a smile on his face. Oh, that makes sense, Silvia mused as she approached him, her bag now slung on her shoulder. Despite their last few friendly minutes, Seojun suddenly appeared nervous as she approached. Silvia noticed and paused in front of him. He then pulled his phone out and said, "Could we exchange phone numbers?" Completely calm, Silvia said, "Of course," as she retrieved her phone. Once their numbers were exchanged, "I'll see you tomorrow, Seojun," Silvia said as she saw the time. Anxiety rose on her face. Then she moved to leave. But then Seojun reached out to her. "Can I walk you to the doors?" Silvia paused and said, "Sure, but I thought you had dance class." "It's on the way," Seojun said confidently. Silvia straightened herself, and while she looked at him sweetly, she said, "Seojun, I know that's not true, and while I'm happy to spend more time with you, spending time together is not a good reason to be late or to skip important events at this time." Seojun seemed slightly hurt and sad about the correction, then said, "Please, Silvia, the lesson doesn't start for 15 more minutes, and I'm happy right now." Silvia softened, then said, "Okay, Seojun. I'm not one to shut down joy for protocol," then playfully said, "But if anyone gets upset, you're taking the heat." Seojun smiled at her tone. "Deal." They began to walk down the halls, finally, after 3 weeks, being comfortable alone in each other's presence. The fittings in the following days were filled with smiles and laughter from everyone around Dreams. The tension seemed to have disappeared without a trace, and while no one knew why, they were just relieved that it was resolved, with their deadline so close. Even with the air cleared, Saori had barely gotten one outfit done. With 5 days left till the music video shoot, Silvia was instructed to help her complete her currently approved designs. Silvia enjoyed helping Saori, as she was now completely done with the outfits she had been tasked to create. The second-hand store's options had truly come in handy. Elaine was finishing her last pair of outfits, while Silvia spent entire shifts working on Saori's outfits for Alexei. However, because of the workload, Elaine had forgotten to usher Silvia home at the end of the night, and Silvia ended up sleeping in the creation room, the outfit she was working on still in her lap. The design team finished the main work for all the outfits for promotions and recordings 2 days before the beginning of the music video's shooting. Silvia was hopeful that her efforts would break the ice with Saori, but it seemed to make her more frustrated. During this time, Seojun and Silvia had made a habit of texting each other throughout their days, both to make sure they were resting and to check up on work. Seojun had become so comfortable with Silvia that the other members became curious and exchanged numbers with her as well. They weren't exactly happy when they found out from Elaine that Silvia had fallen asleep while working, but they understood her drive to work. Silvia was grateful to have made such nice friends. It almost felt unreal.